Hello, everyone, and welcome to another broadcast of Northwest Georgia Cryptics. I am Rick Weaver, your host. I'm joined tonight by Mr. Shane Honey, my co-host. Shane, how you doing tonight, buddy?
I'm doing good, brother. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Can you still hear me good? All right, let's bring Miss Heather on.
Hi.
Hello, Heather. How's it going, young lady?
Oh, I'm all right. My internet is not cooperating, so I'm had to
Hey,
come in on my cell phone.
oh, okay. Mine's crazy too. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm Rick Weaver, by the way.
Hello.
I'm the one that found. I'm the original founder of Northwest Georgia Cryptics. I've actually just give you a little bio about myself. I've actually been into the cryptic world since my first sighting in 1984. I really got into it in 2011. We had a encounter down at Altoona Lake, which is located about 20 miles from where I live. We had a encounter down there that lasted actually for about 3 months
Oh,
uh,
wow.
with Blake Duckworth, a good friend of mine who used to co-host the show. Actually, it culminated with him actually seeing three of the creatures.
Mm.
Uh, we also do paranormal investigation. I understand from Shane that you're into the paranormal end of it. Uh,
Yes.
we've uh, we've been into that since probably since about 2009. Uh, do a good bit of investigations. I have an old cemetery there at Altoona Lake that we visit quite often, and it's actually where we first had our Bigfoot encounters there at Altoona. Um, we were actually down there doing a paranormal investigation that night, and we had our cameras set up, lights. I had a pen light on this one gentleman's headstone, and we were interacting and was actually getting the pen light to come on and off, uh,
Hmm.
kind of trying to communicate with us in that aspect. We had some other things going on, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, we start getting rocks the size of basketballs thrown from the wood line, which was about 60 yards away, across and over through the tree we were standing under. So it was
Time to
it,
go.
it was quite an ordeal that night.
Yeah.
uh, so
Oh,
Heather, would
Ooh,
you like
man.
to
Rick, I tell you.
yeah, I'm telling you, would you like to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what's going on in your neck of the woods?
Okay. My name is Heather Moser. I am an author and researcher and producer for the documentary film company Small Town Monsters. Um, I live in Minerva, Ohio, home of the Minerva Monster, and I, we had a show actually on YouTube that chronicled some of the activity that happened on my property, um, which was really odd because we had just moved here to the farm, and um, hadn't been here very long actually, and I had a friend with me shortly after we moved in to just have she had just flown in and we're both into ghost stuff, and so I was like, this is an older house. um, the land of course is old, we're in Appalachia, so let's see if there's any spirits or anything that might want to talk with us. And we started off with a ghost investigation, and we thought, how spooky than to go in the middle of the woods to do it. And she got extremely uncomfortable within a few minutes of us, like, just even setting things up, setting up different pieces of equipment. And she asked to go out into the field because it's a big farm, so there's plenty of acres. So we went out in the field, and we started to set things up. And I'm like, man, just an open field doesn't feel like it just doesn't feel spooky to me. But you know what? We're not far from where the Ohio Howl was recorded years ago. So let me play that on my phone real quick, just for fun. And I played the Ohio Howl on my phone. It wasn't that loud. I mean, it's just my cell phone. And what was that?
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't say anything.
Oh, okay. I had just played the Ohio Howl, and then we got a return call, not that far away. And the evening got carried away after that. There were tree breaks. We heard like I want to say it's like a snorting, but it's the closest thing I've ever heard is whenever you startle a deer, when you come up on a deer and they don't recognize that you're there right away and they huff.
Right.
That kind of sound, but extremely close, very loud. And that was just the beginning, really, because as soon as I went back into work a few days later, I told Seth, the owner of Small Town Monsters, I said, "You're not going to believe this, but so listen, I was doing this ghost investigation, and here's what happened. It sounded more like Bigfoot, and because we were getting return howls and some whistles and stuff." And he said, "Well, I want to come out then. I want to see what's going on." And that's kind of how the Bigfoot project got started, was him coming out to the property. And we had some cameras. We have a cabin in the middle of the property, and that's where we would stay. And especially the first night, I mean, we had activity throughout the times that Seth was here, and he would bring other investigators on and off. Like we had Alexander Petikoff and Eli Watson out as well. But that first night especially it was unnerving, because we could hear it sounded like multiple creatures around us. We had the rock throwing and landing near us, which was probably the first time that I was really unnerved throughout the whole thing. And then Seth actually had a sighting on the far side of the farm on a clear cut area where there's a pipeline that runs through.
Right.
He saw something. It was in the middle of the day, and I was not with him, unfortunately, for that one. I was watching the kids. But he was out just filming some B-roll during the day, and they were on the gator, and he saw one run. And that was his first, well, as far as I'm aware, the only thing, unless he's seen something this weekend when he was in West Virginia, his only and like visual sighting as well. And so when he got back to the house, he was super, super stoked about it. And I was excited for him, but man, I was like, I missed it. So, but yeah, so that's like a kind of a rundown of like, as far as Bigfoot wise, what's going on here in my area.
Okay, I got a question for you. How how does it feel for you to actually know that you live on a property that has these creatures on them?
Well, I don't even know. I'm not. The only time I was unnerved was whenever we had the rock throwing. Other than that, I haven't felt, even I've gone out by myself, because I guess I'm of the mindset that they've been here anyway, even before I was aware of them. So if there had been an intent to do something, then they would have. I guess I don't know. I don't know. I'm not afraid of, at least I go a lot by gut feeling. So if I'm out in
Right.
the woods, whether it's here or in the woods where I grew up, which that isn't too far away from here either. If I feel uneasy, then I leave. I don't question that. So I go a lot off of gut feeling. And most of the time when I am out, even if it's at night, I feel fine. But if I do feel concerned, then I don't question that. and I leave.
Right. Well, have you had any activity at all around your home that you live in, or is it basically just on the property?
Oh no, there's stuff that happens here at the house, like in the house all the time, and it's not like Bigfoot related. There's all kinds of weird stuff that happens here. Um, it gets aggravating at times, actually. Like there's all of us in the house have heard everyone else yell, yell out for them, sometimes full sentences. We hear our voices, not our own, but like I might hear my daughter's voice, she might hear me. Um, and it's happened when there's no one else in the house but just the person hearing it. It's happened when we're all here but everybody's asleep except one or two. It happens enough that the kids, they wait for a certain tone that they know, like are more familiar with in my voice before they respond. um, because I guess they hear often me just yell for them for whatever reason. um, so there's that kind of stuff that happens. um, when my friend did come, even that first time that she was here, and we had equipment going in the house, we were getting activity with flashlights, like turning, like you had your pen light turn on and off. I have a little mag light and I can get responses from that. My mother-in-law, who lived in the house before me, she had experiences. I didn't know, I knew that she had experiences, but I didn't know all the details about it until we moved in, and then we started asking more questions. Like, okay, hold up. We know that you said stuff happened, but was it this? Was it the dark shadow in the closet type thing? Like, did you ever see something come out, like reach out over the bed? Um, and these are things that she's experienced well before we were here. So, um, yeah, it's the same thing as when I go in the woods as well, where if I am feeling okay, I'm fine. Um, if I don't know if I've ever really been scared. Well, no, there's been a couple times I guess I've been scared. I shouldn't say I haven't been. But then I just get irritated um, because it's my house. So I get upset that I'm scared in my own house. And I think that's just a personality thing, I think, than anything else. But yeah, there's weirdness happening.
Right. It sounds as though you're having a multiple array of things happening on the property as far as Bigfoot and the paranormal both are concerned. Which
Mhm.
you know I have investigated a lot of places throughout Georgia, Alabama, Tennessee, up into the edge of Kentucky, down into Florida, and I've run across quite a few people that tell me they have it's basically the same story that you're telling. They have not only the Sasquatch problems going on, but also with the paranormal. I know where I live here. I live in Calhoun, Georgia. Calhoun was known for being the capital of the Cherokee Nation. Uh, the property that I own here, my roommate Michael Hill. This was, and I don't know if I ever should have told you about this, Shane, or not, but Michael went out one night. We have a big fire pit out in the backyard, and he went out to set a small fire in the fire pit. And he said as he walked out onto the porch to his left, he noticed like just this. He said he thought it was like a glowing orb or something when he first saw it, but he glanced back over and he said that it was a lighted apparition, but he said the light was kind of just a like a golden fading light, but it was a full apparition of a Indian in full headdress,
Wow.
and he saw this for about a minute. He said, and then it just like it kind of just slowly backed away and just faded into the darkness. And he came back into the house all excited over this. Uh, we've done some actual experiments around the house here. I picked up stuff on EVP. Uh, we have what we call cat balls. I don't know if you're familiar with those
Yeah,
or
I've
not.
got those.
Oh,
Yeah.
have you? Okay. Okay, yeah, I utilize those quite a lot, and we actually set those up that night and had those actually, every one of them going off at one time. So there was definitely
That's cool.
electronic frequency there, or electromagnetic frequency that was causing those lights to go off. Um, I was telling Shane about a time down on Johns Mountain. We were down there, and there's an old cemetery that dates back to the God, probably early 1800s. Maybe I'm going to say probably 45, 50 graves in the cemetery, and it's right where two roads come together, and this thing sets kindly in or lays kindly in a triangle and runs back up into the edge of the woods. And we stopped there one night, just going to get out and do a little investigation. I didn't think we'd get much out of it, but we sat around and we went around the perimeter of the cemetery and set the cat balls up in, I don't know, 8 or 10 different locations, and then we set up a couple of voice recorders, got the camera equipment out, set it up, and Blake, he said something, and all of a sudden, man, all the cat balls just came on at one time and started
Whoa.
flashing. And this went on for about 2 minutes. That these things flashed constantly for about 2 minutes, and uh, then all of a sudden Blake got sick of his real bad sick of his stomach, and he told me, "Man, I've got to go sit down a minute. So I don't know what's happened." So he went and sat back down in the car, and but now as soon as he left the perimeter of the cemetery and got back in the car, everything just cut off.
Hmm.
So I don't know whether it was something that was drawn to him or what it was, but it was like everything just like you throw the switch and cut everything off at
Huh.
one time. And so I don't
Has,
know.
has that happened in other things like that seem other times that you've been out that activity seems to center around when he's around?
A couple of times down at the lake, we had, like I said, that first night we were down there and had the Bigfoot encounters. This grave that he was at was a Mr. Kiefer. And what made it so strange is there's five brothers buried in the cemetery. All five of them fought in the Civil War, the Kiefer brothers. And I think one of them was actually killed during the war. But they're all buried there, all of them in just a straight line.
Mm.
And for some reason, Blake had been drawn to this center grave. I can't think what the guy's first name was, but he told me, so let's set on this. This is before we had any other activity going on. So we got everything set up, and Blake he said, "Mr. Kiefer, how are you doing today?" Is what it was. And when just as soon as he said it, the pin light blinked twice, and nobody around it. It just blinked on and off. Um, and then for like the next 15, 20 minutes, we were carrying on a conversation, basically, I guess you'd say with a dead man's spirit, uh,
Hmm.
and it actually interacting with us by the by the pin line,
Hmm.
uh, and
Yeah.
it was wild. It really was, and what got me is I had this little green truck in my pocket. My grandkids were all small back then, and one of them had put a little green truck in my coat pocket.
Yeah.
And we took this. I felt the truck in my pocket, so I took it out and set it down. And uh, Blake, he said something to the effect, "Oh, look here, here's a little green truck." And we really didn't pay any attention to it. All right, we got kind of distracted by what started up with the Sasquatch, and we moved over to the end of the cemetery, and we still had the camera and everything set up there at the grave. All right, after we left that night, after we'd had all this other stuff go on, and we left that night and got back to the house, we started going through the EVPs, and we started going through the film on the camera, and all of a sudden on the camera you see the little green truck move by itself. It moved about maybe, I don't know, 3 to 4 inches. The
Yeah.
truck did by itself, and at the same time this thing moved, and it was recorded on the camera, the clock on the camera, and then the clock on the voice recorder. At the same time this truck moved, you could hear this, it sound like a demonic, real deep demonic voice say green, just like it was, I don't know what it was, like it was, I don't know whether it was PO'd because of the green color or whether it was excited over it or what. But it
Yeah.
was wild as all get out.
That's
But
awesome.
yeah, that's some of the stuff that we've had happen to us.
So you have that on recording. Like
Yeah,
you've
oh,
got that
yes,
on the audio. Oh
yeah,
man.
yeah.
That's can you send that to me sometime?
I sure
Because
can.
that's
I sure
amazing.
can. I'll have to go back on the computer and pull it up. But yeah, I will. Did you get the other picture that? Did you send that to her, Shane? Shane, are you listening to us? You hearing us? Can you hear us?
Hey, you're breaking up, Rick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Breaking up,
Can you
buddy.
hear? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, what you needing, buddy?
Okay. Did you send that picture to Heather?
Oh, I haven't. I didn't think I'd gotten it yet.
Yeah, I
But
sent
yeah,
it to your.
I can.
I sent it to your email last night.
Okay. Yeah, I can send it. Yeah, I'll check and I can do that. That's not a problem.
Okay. What he's going to be sending you, Heather, is a picture that a lady, Tarina from Nashville, Tennessee. Uh,
Hmm.
we had actually 2 or 3 shows with her and her husband. I think it was back last year, maybe in the last of 2020. But
Hmm.
she had sent me a an array of photos that she had taken up there on her property in Nashville, and one is of a burning car where somebody had actually stolen a car and had burned it on their property. Okay, where the car is at on the side of the road, I mean, you can see the flames going on the car and all. Pitch dark, the whole area behind it's lit up, and you can see the solid form of a Sasquatch standing probably 30 yards in behind the car in the woodline.
Wow.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
He was just as curious about what was going on.
right. What it is, they own a her husband works for the I think for the government, and
Hmm.
they own 3 or 4 big businesses there around Nashville. So they actually own like a big compound deal there outside of Nashville, and I forget how much acreage she said they had, but they've got like a big lake on the back of the property and a lake house and all over there. Uh,
Hmm.
but this car had been brought in there and abandoned on the road going between the lake house and their home, and so I don't know whether these things were actually curious enough that they came where this one came down and was trying to watch what was going on with that car or what the deal was. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, that's intriguing. I get the sense that they are very curious, in general. That just seems to be their nature. We've had like the first time that we did any filming here, we had our kids out with us at the cabin in the back. And it seemed like pretty much any time we had the children with us on following trips, there would be an increase in activity. And I don't know if that was just, they're little and they make different noises than us. I don't know, they're fun to watch or what. because they're just playing and having fun. But we would get more activity, it seemed, when there were children around, as if they were curious. And I've also talked to witnesses who've had Sasquatch sightings that coincide with UFO sightings, which then gets into the discussion of whether they're connected, or if the Sasquatch is actually also looking at this anomaly in the sky, is drawn out and just as curious. So I don't know, it gets into, that's where you start to deviate in your thoughts, everybody, as far as what a Sasquatch may be, if it's a, flesh and blood creature, or if it's supernatural or from another world or another dimension. It's all over the place.
Well, myself, my grandfather, Alfred Painter, was full-blooded Cherokee Indian. He was
Mhm.
raised up on the Cherokee Reservation in North Carolina, right around the reservation and over into Fontana, North Carolina.
Mhm.
Grandfather always told me that he would speak of these creatures, but in a higher regard than he would, if he was talking about someone that he liked or whatever. He
Okay.
told me that these creatures were basically what they considered them. They were a spiritual creature,
Mhm.
and they were watchers of the woods,
Yeah.
and that's the way he told me.
Yeah.
And that was his people's belief in all of this.
Mhm.
And so I have I have I feel that I put a Sasquatch on a higher plane than what we are,
Mhm.
because I have talked and interviewed so many people that have had so many different experiences with these creatures, and uh, mind speak. I've had people tell me that they've become deathly ill, when they've encountered these creatures. I've had people tell me that they've had, just mundane encounters with these creatures, where the creatures would walk up within 10 yards of them. Then I've had people tell me that they've had encounters with these creatures where they have come in and destroyed their camp, and
Yeah.
raided their camps, strode everything everywhere. So that's something that I tell Shane. We over the last 40 years we've gained a lot of knowledge about these creatures, but yet we really don't know squat about them. I mean, it's just
Yeah. Yeah. Which is probably to their benefit, to be
right.
honest.
Well,
If
really,
we knew.
we do not know. We do not know when we encounter one of these creatures. We don't know what kind of mood they're going to be in. We don't know what's going
Right.
to set these creatures out.
Mhm. Yeah,
Uh, so
exactly.
my advice to anyone, if you're not actually doing an investigation and kind of know what you're dealing with when you're dealing with these creatures, if you encounter one of these creatures in the forest, you know, I tell everybody just to back out and leave it with them,
Yeah.
because you don't know what is going to set one of these creatures out. So we really don't.
Mhm.
I've encountered wood knocks. I've encountered rocks thrown at me. I've encountered trees thrown at me. I've encountered trees pushed over. I've encountered uh, uh, limb breakages. I've had them come in in the mountains up on Cohutta Wildlife Management Area in Murray County. I've had them actually come up and shake the tent and me in the
Yeah.
tent. Uh,
Mhm.
so, but as far as one ever getting actual physical with me, I've not had it. Other
Thankfully.
than. But I mean, actually, just actually trying to attack you is what I'm saying.
Right. Yeah.
Uh, but
Yeah.
yeah, I
But
feel, if you encounter one of these things and they want you out of the area, they're going to let you know they want you out of there.
yes, I think so. And I think that that is why it's important to go off of the feelings you have as well. because if these things have the ability to, to make you physically ill or the mind speak or anything like that, they can let you know before there's an issue for them. You shouldn't be here, before you see them, before you know that they're there. Um, and then if you're still there, that's when they would start throwing stuff or pushing things over, or they have ways to alert you as any other creature would, as far as that goes. So I completely understand that. But yeah, I've luckily nothing physical has happened here either, except the closest thing was the rock throws, which didn't just happen with Seth and I when we were here. Mark Madsky was here the one time. I wasn't even out with them. They were just back at the cabin, Seth and Mark, and a rock was thrown by Mark's head while they were just sitting around the campfire. So they weren't even, doing anything to provoke, I guess. They were just there. Maybe that was enough. Or maybe they, the maybe the creatures just wanted them to know that they weren't alone, don't forget I'm here kind of thing. But I don't know. I've heard it all over the map too, as far as the behavior goes, even just walking up to a window and scaring someone. Heard of them shaking tents or rocking the side of buildings, smacking the side of buildings, things like that are more intimidation tactics. And then there are people that feel almost enlightened after seeing one. So it is really all over the map as far as how people react or how they handle an encounter, especially if they see one. That one always gets me, because you have people that see them and then that turns into their life. Like they want to see it again. They want to figure it out, and that becomes their goal, to have another encounter. And then others are just terrified and would never want to never want to come across one again, because it just changed their entire worldview. So
Well, I guess I was in the group that it is basically, uh, I guess, consumed my life to a point that any free time I get, I try to be out in the woods, investigating these creatures. If I have someone local that calls me up and tells me they're having a problem on their property, whatever, I'm one of the first to be there. But I actually had my first sighting, in it was actually July the 5th of 1984. Myself and a friend of mine had decided to take a 2-day rafting trip on Talking Rock Creek. Uh, we had went over, got our raft and everything in the creek that afternoon. Started that was on the 4th, and we actually had an accident where we got thrown out of the raft. All of our camping equipment and all had gotten scattered about. I ended up being stuck that night up until probably 4:30, 5 o'clock the next day without a cigarette, and I was a big smoker back then. So uh, my nerves was at wit's end. But
sure.
We got up the next morning after all this had happened, and we got our raft back in the water, gathered up what we had left, set out on. We'd managed to save one reeling rod, and that's what we're doing over there, trout fishing. And I had it in the back of the raft, just kind of casting it out a little in the eddy spots in the creek as it was floating. We went across what they call Cedar Bluffs, the falls there at Cedar Bluffs that morning. This was on the 5th. Uh, got down about 2 miles, probably below Cedar Bluffs, and there was a creek that run in from the left-hand side, from Skeercorn Creek, and just right past where the mouth of Little Skeercorn run into Talking Rock, there was like a big sandbar that came out in a triangle shape out of the woods and out into the mouth of the creek. And this thing was, we came around the curve to the right. I glanced over to my left. I saw this I thought was a bear. It was crouched over like a man at the edge of the water.
Right.
And okay, I done the double take. Well, this thing, I reckon, about the time I saw it, it kind of winded us because it came up right straight up on two legs. And the first thing I noticed when it came up was the hands when they came up out of the water. I was
Mm.
expecting to see fire paws. No, it
Yeah.
was two human hands, kind of like ours, all except maybe about twice, three times the size of mine. And when its hands came up, I noticed that the backs of its hands was covered in hair down to about at the middle knuckle. This thing threw its head back when it stood fully erect, and I guess winded us for maybe 2, 3 seconds. It turned, wood line about 40, 50 yards behind it. This thing covered it in maybe 3 or 4 large strides, and it was gone.
Mm-hmm.
When it hit the woods, we heard, when it first hit the woods, we heard a few limbs crash. Other than that, we didn't hear it or see it again.
Mm.
But this was my first sighting of one. Hair, it was completely covered in hair.
Yeah.
Uh, the way it threw its head back, I really couldn't get a real good look at its facial features, other than it. I could tell that it had a rather pronounced brow line.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but really, that's about all the features I can tell about it.
Yeah. If you think back now, how tall would you estimate it could be, or was it too
Well,
not?
as I tell everybody, I'd say between 5.5, 6 foot tall.
Mm-hmm.
The creature, I would, and until this day, I say that it was a younger juvenile.
Mm-hmm.
But what I found strange about it was once we got past it and this thing had left, we got pulled over to the left hand side of the creek. And as I was telling Shane, I got out and we walked back up to where we saw it at, which this was a rough, rocky base point that came out of the creek, or out into the creek there, and we really didn't see any footprints. But where this thing was crouched over into the water, there was a pile of I don't know if you know what I'm talking about or not, but what we call freshwater mussel that look
Mm-hmm.
like small clam shells.
Yep.
They were a pile of those things about this tall, piled up
Mm.
right in front of where this thing was crouched over at. So undoubtedly, you know, and this was my assumption, was that this thing was eating those mussels,
Sure.
and that's basically what we interrupted when we came around through there.
Mm-hmm.
And
How many times have you been back?
I've been back to that area maybe 3, 4 times. We've done some over the years. We've done a couple of night investigations since since that happened to me in '84. The government sold a lot of that land off in there, and they built uh,
Mm.
a big housing project all through the mountains over there. There's probably, I don't know, there's probably 300, 400 homes that's built in that area over there now on the far side of the creek.
Mhm.
Roads cut all through the mountains over there. But
Yeah.
what we done, we went back down and floated back down to that same area, which, in general, on the creek side of it, it still basically looks about the same as it
Mm-hmm.
did in 1984. But
Right.
uh, we never did really get any encounters after that. And I think a lot of it's due to all the houses and all the people living there in the mountains now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In this area, there had been a lot of activity. Um, I'm talking before we even moved here. There were activity in the surrounding area. Um, Probably at this point, it was probably close to 10 years ago. A lot of people were having sightings in this county, but then the gas and oil companies came in and started drilling and cutting lines and things, and it was like
Right.
everything stopped. Um, and everything went quiet for years. And now there's a bit of an uptick now, but um, we have lulls in that kind of activity, um, as far as the drilling or anything like that, but we're getting ready to have more soon. So I don't know. I mean, my gut tells me that things will die down for a while. I don't know where they go. Um, but when things settle down, maybe we'll have activity again. I don't know, but that seems to be the pattern so far. Anyway.
Well, I know the area that we investigate a lot down at Altoona Lake. They have they went in down there back about, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago and done a lot of extensive logging in that area. Cut a
Mhm.
lot of the big timber out, the old growth timber,
Yeah.
and it doesn't seem that we've had as much activity since they've started the logging as we had before. Uh,
Mhm.
but
Yeah.
again, I contribute that to these creatures being, uh, I guess you would say, nomads,
Yeah.
uh, because these creatures, in my opinion, they are, they're like people. They follow the food source. I
Mhm.
mean, if take for instance, if you had one favorite grocery store that you shopped at all the time across town or whatever, and it closed down, of course you're going to go and find you another store. Well,
Yeah.
these creatures are the same way.
Mhm.
Uh, if the game move out of an area, they're going to leave that area and go where the game source is at.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, and what we've experienced just here on the farm is the activity stopped for uh for months as soon as deer season started. When gun season came in, then activity ceased. Um, which isn't surprising. Uh, I mean, for multiple reasons, but they seem to, like you said, it's a cyclical thing. So they will come back. It's more in the spring, late spring, early summer, stuff starts up again. It kind of peaks in the fall, but then by November, 'cause the first day of gun season is right after Thanksgiving. After that, it goes pretty quiet. Not, I mean, they may not move out completely. We might have things here and there, but in general, like the Sasquatch activity, pretty much gone.
Right. Shane, you got any questions for Heather while we got on here?
Yeah. Uh, you were talking about that you at one point had your children out with you on some investigations and such there
Mm,
on your property.
mm,
And of course, we all know about how they're real curious when it comes to children. And I've
mm-hmm,
heard a lot of accounts where some of these creatures will actually go up to windows of people's houses, especially children's bedrooms, and
yeah.
and tap on the windows and stuff. That creeps
Mm-hmm.
me out. You stop and think about it. What are your thoughts on their behavior like that with and around children?
Well, the when we were actually doing the filming and we had the children there were always adults with them. Then the first night that was like it has to be episode 1 of the Bigfoot project where the rocks were being thrown and stuff, and Seth and I
Mm-hmm.
were out in the woods. Um, Corey, my husband, was with the kids back at the cabin. They were in the cabin. He was outside of the cabin.
Mm-hmm.
He could hear things running around, but he was there, so it never, got close. Enough for him to hear it, but that was about all. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as far, I don't know. I've heard about them, like instances where it's been almost a danger, and
Mm-hmm.
I would think that the kids, like when they're outside playing, need to just follow the same things that we've warned them about, as far as, hey, there are coyotes out here. There are other things that you might need to be careful about. Don't antagonize, don't run, but just slowly back away or anything like that. But I guess I don't know. I don't get a sense that I have anything really to worry about when it comes to a Sasquatch
Hmm.
trying to do anything to the
Yeah.
kids. I feel like something would have happened by now. Um, and it hasn't. So I don't know. I get more concerned when I see the coyotes out, or hear them rather start up, and then I'm like, all right, you guys, you can come back in now. Let's get back in the house. um,
Mm.
but I mean, it is. They do that. I've heard stories with kids, obviously, but I've heard that with adults as well, or women. Um, Sometimes the behavior changes if women are around, as far as the sounds, like mimicking a baby cry or coming up to the windows.
Yeah.
And that's probably partly why, on a deeper level, I don't ever like to look at windows at night. Like I've been like that since I was little, but that's also been concerned of just anything that could be outside, ghosts or whatever. I don't look at windows at night. I will walk by
Yeah.
all of them in the house and not look at any of them because I don't want to accidentally see anything.
Hmm.
It would be really really brazen for something to come into the house. So as long as I'm in the house, I'm all right.
Yeah.
You're basically your safe spot as long as you're in the house.
Yeah, that's what I tell
Yeah,
myself anyway.
right, right, right. I understand that completely.
Yeah.
But no, I'll tell you what. Like I said, I've been doing this for years, and I try to get out every chance I can get. Uh, we have a lot of different areas. We have uh, the Cohutta Wilderness Area, Murray County, 48,000 acres of it. We live on the edge of the Oconee National Forest, which there's uh, altogether, I think, in the state of Georgia, over 1 million acres of the Oconee National Forest.
Hmm.
Uh, so there's actually plenty of land for these creatures to live on and thrive in this area. Uh,
Yeah.
I know I myself, with the group that we have, we get 2 to 3 reports a month on.
Kitty.
Come here, cat. I have cats and dogs running everywhere. But
Rick has
I
a house.
love it.
what's that saying? But
Say again, Mr. Rick.
oh, and I was saying, we get out every chance we can get, and try to learn new evidence about these creatures. I've done everything from doing gifting poles for them
Hmm.
to, and I've tried uh, all types of fruits on gifting poles. I've learned that I think apples are probably their number one go-to when you got stuff put out like that. They love apples,
Yeah.
or this area down here do. Uh,
Mhm.
which in the mountains, I found areas up there. We have a lot of apple trees that grow wild in the mountains in this area around here, and you'll actually find uh, uh, partially eaten apples uh, where something has ate on them and discarded them. Uh, but it's just I don't know. It's just really wild what you can actually get into while trying to research these creatures.
Hmm. Yeah, that's. I have a spot in the one section of the woods up here that we've had instances of. I guess I should back up. When we first moved here, I went out in the woods and I put crystals all through the woods. Not for anything other than I thought when the kids got older and they went out and they'd find like these little treasures, that would be really cool for them. But after
Right.
we had our first incident where we heard the howling, I went back and checked where I had my crystals, and they would be moved. And that's something that that's recurred over the months that the crystals will get moved. But the most significant thing was that in the one area, it was like a tree stump where a tree had rotted, and it was the stump almost looks like there are three trees that were together at the bottom, and it started to come up. So there's three distinct areas on this stump. And I had a quartz and some other stones, but there was a yellow, I'm sure it was dyed by acid, quartz that was gone. And in its place was a vertebrae from a deer. That was the first time, the first time I went back to check. So I was like, wow, this is awesome. Let's see, that's weird. I took the bone, brought it back to the house, and rearranged some of the stones. And every time I go out, I take pictures so that I can see, the pattern that they're in, and because I don't check them every day. But when I went back, it took a month or two before that crystal appeared again. And it did come back. And other rocks would be moved and stuff, but it was gone for weeks. When it came back, it was dirty, muddy, like something had been handling it. It had been somewhere dirty, not just a tree stump, I guess is what I'm trying to say. There was mud on it. And I brought it back, so I have it in the house as well now. But I go and I change things around. I tried like seashells. There wasn't really any response to that. I've put toys out, little like McDonald's toys in certain areas. Sometimes those get moved around. I found an old baby bottle that was made of glass. No head on it or anything, but I put things in the bottle and set it out just to see what would happen. And that the bottle has been moved several yards. The stuff scattered out of it, which doesn't necessarily mean Sasquatch, but it's just interesting to note when all of that stuff gets moved around. So yeah, that's the kind of, I guess, gifting. I've never put food out, but we have put trail cams out. Not seen anything on a trail cam, which isn't surprising either. But we put them out near I guess you could call them gifting sites. And the animals that I've seen on the trail cam don't seem to be ones like the one geode that I would put out. It would always get tossed several feet away from the stump that I put it on. And I was never catching on the trail cam the animals messing with the stones or anything like that. And that geode that I put out was heavy. So I don't believe a squirrel like picked it up and tossed it, or a raccoon or anything like that. I mean, I guess maybe a raccoon, maybe, but it's still so far away that I don't see it. I don't see that happening. Raccoons have better things to do and get into, like the cat food down here, than to be tossing a stone around up in the woods.
Well, now I'll tell you something that a friend of mine that actually has a channel on YouTube, and also does. He has a Facebook group, Johnny Two Bears. It's I think Sasquatch Brigade. He actually tried an experiment at his house. He lives at Cartersville, down next where Shane lives. But where he lives at, there's a WMA right in behind his house, Wildlife Management Area. I think there's like 30,000 acres or whatever that down there. But he kept having activity. Now he lives in a gated community, but they'd been having activity where something had been coming out of the woods, coming up and aggravating his dogs, stealing chickens, whatever.
Yeah.
But he started getting into it, and he had taken a jar of Jif peanut butter.
Yeah.
He had taken the lid off of it, screwed the lid into a tree, then tightened the peanut butter jar back down on the lid. Okay. He said about 2 nights later, he heard an awful commotion out behind the chicken house. Got his flashlight, went out there. He said that he found the jar of peanut butter had been unscrewed.
Yeah.
The peanut butter jar was sitting about, I think he said about 10, 15 foot from where he originally had it on the tree. But the amazing part of it was there was one big thumbprint right in the middle of the peanut butter that was about 3 times as wide as my thumb. Well, this thing
Mm-hmm.
had just raked its thumb through it, I guess, and got the peanut butter out of it. But
That's awesome.
uh, I know he said, undoubtedly this thing would have, had he not went out there, this thing would have probably ate that jar of peanut butter or whatever. But
Mm-hmm.
let me catch this right quick.
Fine.
Hello, I'm doing a podcast right now. Let me call you back in just a second. All right, bye.
I love Ray. He's a great guy.
Hey, sorry about that.
You're fine.
But no, we have quite a bit of activity in this area down here.
Mm-hmm.
Shane and I hope to be able to get some time off here in the near future to start going out and doing some more investigations. But now he was telling me what you had going on up there, and I wanted to touch base with you and let you tell tell our viewers what you had going on in your area. Uh,
Yeah.
as far as the small town monsters that you're involved with, have
Mm-hmm.
y'all had any pretty decent investigations or?
Yeah, I mean, we cover a variety of topics, not just Bigfoot, but as far as Bigfoot investigations go, um, like our next movie that's coming out next week, actually, um, it's On the Trail of Bigfoot. Last Frontier was in Alaska, and although the main crew didn't do any investigations, Alex and Eli did, which their episodes of Beyond the Trail. There were two of them. One was released on Thanksgiving, and one came out on Christmas. They were out at a cabin that's called Area A and experienced a ton of activity out there. So that's something that definitely needs followed up on. But as far as something closer to home, uh, we had really odd activity on the Chestnut Ridge in Pennsylvania. Um, we
Oh,
did
okay.
we did a season of we called it Sasquatch Unearthed the Ridge, and it's on YouTube too. You can watch it. We had some interesting nights there. The one involved a lot of like spook lights on top of Sasquatch type activity, and it was really like those were the spook lights were amazing. They were very bright, and everyone saw them, which was amazing. Um, but I'd say the Chestnut Ridge was the weirdest so far, other than here on the farm, which, like I said, it's died down. Um, it died down around hunting season, but it's starting to wane again as more people start moving in to do some digging. But um, yeah, it's we try to get out when we can. Alex and Eli do a lot of that on the Beyond the Trail, where it's just the two of them going out. Sometimes it's just Alex, and I think that lends itself to getting more activity than sometimes when we're out filming for the movies. We don't have as much time out in the field to like dedicate to actually investigating, because we're also interviewing witnesses and experts, and we might be out in the field for a few hours. And like on the Chestnut Ridge, we had crazy activity within that time. But when you get like Beyond the Trail with Alex and Eli, or just Alex, like I said, they're there for days at a time in these locations, and that I think I think that's a key to having activity and being able to document it, is to spend more time out there. So yeah, they've had all kinds of stuff happen.
Right. Well, I know in this area we're actually about I'm going to say about uh, an hour and 45 minutes, maybe 2 hours from the Great Smoky Mountains.
Yes.
We done an investigation up there. I think it was about a year and a half ago, uh, and got a lot of good evidence up there. The weekend that we spent up there, got voice recordings. We got tree knocks. We got rocks thrown at us that night up there, but not a lot of rock activity. Uh,
Hmm.
but it was just in all good investigation. Now, one thing I want to bring to light, and I do this periodically, is I tell a little story that a guy told me a few years ago, uh, and it just goes to show you the light that most people think that these creatures, if they exist, as they tell me, that they're just a bunch of dumb apes running around in the woods. Well, there was a guy told me that he had an experience with them a few years ago in Tennessee that changed his mind about them. He said that he'd been going into this one area up there camping for about 3 or 4 months. He'd been going up there trout fishing, and he said that on Friday nights, when he would first get there and get his camp and all set up, about 10, 11 o'clock, he'd go to bed, and he said that he would have stones, just small pebbles, thrown against his tent just all night long, just enough to kind of keep him awake during the night. And he said this progressed for about 2 or 3 months like that. And he said, well, he decided he'd go to Walmart. So he went to Walmart and he bought the tennis balls. All right. He took them back that weekend. He got up there on Friday evening. He said about 15 cars parked in the parking area where he was at. He went up and got his camp set up. Said, sure enough, about 11 o'clock at night, 10:30, 11 o'clock, here come the rocks being thrown against his tent. Well, he said he let that carry on for about 30 minutes, and he got out there and he got throwing these tennis balls up through the woods. And he said you could actually hear these things chasing these tennis balls down. Okay? He said the next morning, now he told me this was the God's honest truth. He said the next day, when he got ready to leave, he got back, got everything packed up, got back down to his vehicle. All these other vehicles sitting around, but every one of these tennis balls he had thrown the night before were lined up across the windshield of his car.
That's awesome.
So now you tell me, if a creature has the intellect to do this, and people say there's a dumb ape out there running around, no. There's a lot more to them than them just being some type of dumb ape out there running around.
Yeah. If there wasn't a certain level of intelligence, we would already have caught them, found them.
Most
Um,
definitely. Most definitely. You know,
so yeah, there has to be a certain level, just and not alone, to not be caught yet.
well, I have hunted and fished the Appalachian Mountains since I was 7 years old.
Mhm.
My dad, my older brothers, I'm from a family, I had 10 brothers and sisters, uh, and was raised up in the mountains, hunting, fishing, enjoyed it all my life. I have heard every type of animal sound that could be known to this environment in this area. Uh, but the vocalizations that I've heard these animals give out is nothing compared to anything that I've ever heard. Uh, the sheer magnitude of what these animals go through on a daily basis to live is something that is awesome to me, because we as humans, we depend on our coffee pots in the mornings when we get up. We depend on having electricity. We depend on having a bathroom to go to. We depend on our showers. We depend on our vehicles to get us back and forth to our works. Uh, uh, these animals don't have to depend on that. All these animals depend on are self-reliance in the wild.
Mhm.
And you know, my respect is awesome for these creatures.
Yeah,
That
most definitely.
they're actually able to live like this in today's world, especially that they're able to live and to thrive and to maintain a livable population with with all the modern conveniences that we've got out there, on a daily basis.
Hmm. Yeah. And I think that also speaks to how vast some of our wilderness is. Um, a lot of people don't realize some of our national parks, how massive they truly are. And, or even thinking about Alaska, how you always hear that it's the last frontier, but when you get there and you see how vast it is, it's no surprise that something could easily be there and not be found, especially if it doesn't want to be found. Um, so yeah, we have pockets, and I'm not saying that they're always in this dense wilderness, but we definitely have that in the United States. These pockets of dense wilderness where things could stay and hide, or safe places to go when they do move if they have to, because of
Right.
us intruding on their area. So we just that's one thing I think we also take for granted is how much land we have that's untouched.
Oh, most definitely, most definitely. Like I say, in this area here where we live, there's thousands of acres around us that there's probably never been a man's footprint put on them.
Hmm.
So yeah, these creatures, they live in the wilderness. They thrive in the wilderness. They carry on, on a daily basis. They fish, they hunt. It's basically like they're living like we as human beings lived 300 years ago. They're still living that lifestyle today. And
Hmm.
like I say, it goes back to, and they're doing that without having to have a cabin to come home to. They're doing it, and this is basically the way I look at things because you know they have none of the modern conveniences that we have,
Right.
and you know I was raised up on a farm when I was little, till I was like, I don't know, 15, 16 years old. So I know what that type of lifestyle is all about.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm 65 years old. I don't know if I'd want to have to go back and live like that again. To
Yeah.
tell you the truth about it, I don't know. But, you know, these creatures, that's the only lifestyle they know.
Hmm.
And they've been doing this for hundreds of years.
Hmm.
They've been actually been living and thriving and raising their young. And like I say, all the respect that I have goes out to these animals for that.
Hmm.
But yet, then I do, like I say, I do caution people that these animals are out there, and that uh, when you run up on one of these animals, you don't really know what kind of mood these creatures are in. One of them could be having a bad day, like a human has a bad day. I work in an auto parts store, and believe me, I see the worst out of everybody. Uh,
Yeah.
People's vehicles tires up in gas shane. People's vehicles tires up. They come into the store. You know, some of the crabbiest people you'll ever meet in your life.
Hmm.
We do have a few that come through that's an enjoyment to interact with, but we have some that come through that, well, for instance, ask Shane here a couple of nights ago. I actually grabbed a box of brake pads up and was going to bang this one in the head with a box of brake shoes just because of his attitude.
Yeah.
But this is so. I go back. I digress. But going back to the deal with the Sasquatch. We just don't know what kind of attitude these creatures have got. We don't know what kind of bad day they've had. So, that's the reason I tell people be very cautious about what you do, because there's one thing for sure. It's just like somebody coming and opening your front door, Heather, and walking in your house. When you go to the wilderness and you crawl out of your vehicle, they know you're there.
Mm-hmm.
Believe me, they know you're there.
Yeah.
There's no doubt about it. From the
Yeah.
time you crawl out of your vehicle, those creatures, if there's one within 20 miles of where you're at, before the night's over, they're going to know you're there.
Mm-hmm.
And what you do with dealing with them, how you deal with them, that's up to you. But
Yeah,
you know,
I agree.
but that's some of our, that's just a few of our encounters we've had here. Um, and I guess as long as I've got a breath in my body, I'm going to be out chasing these things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be out trying to learn all I can about them.
Yep,
Um,
I completely understand.
that's the reason I do these podcasts. I talk to people, um, and I go into details where somebody calls me up and tells me they've had an encounter. Uh, I want to know weather condition. I want to know what time of day it was, what time of night it was,
Mm-hmm.
where they were at. Was it a road crossing? Was it in the woods? Whatever. That's the type of
Right.
information that by each encounter, a researcher can learn more detail.
Mm-hmm. Yep, you can start to see patterns, paint a picture. Absolutely.
That's it. All right, well, folks, we have reached a little over an hour mark here. I'm going to thank everyone that's joined us tonight and everyone that will watch us in the future. Uh, I hope you'll go down and hit the bell notification, subscribe to our channel, and we'll continue trying to bring you some awesome content. And Heather, you have a standing uh, welcome to come back to the show anytime you want to come back. We've
Oh,
really
thank you
enjoyed
very
having you
much.
on tonight. And I really want to thank
Yes.
you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I had fun.
We've really enjoyed
Yes,
having you
ma'am.
here.
Thank you.
Shane, got anything else before we go?
I just want to thank everybody for listening, and thank you, Heather, for coming on. I really appreciate you coming on, and enjoyed listening to you and all. And just like Rick said, anytime you want to come back, Lord knows we'll be glad to have you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. Heather, hey, if y'all run across anything up there that you think we would like to know about, you know, you got my I think you got Shane's email address.
Mhm.
Mine is let me put it up here right quick. Okay, this is our email address for our Facebook page, Northwest Georgia Cryptics at gmail.com. And if anyone out there has any sightings or anything that you'd like to report to us, just hit me up in an email and we'll get right back to you. All right, everybody. Thank you again for watching the show. Shane, thank you, bud, for being on with me tonight. Heather, again, thank you wholeheartedly. Uh,
Thank
and everybody, good night.
Good night, everybody.
Thank y'all.
you. Bye.
Bye. Oh. All right, Shane, how do you think she went, buddy?
I think it went real good.
I do
Um,
too.
yeah, she's got her hands in all kind of stuff, paranormal, ghost and Sasquatch and all kind of stuff, and their shows that she helps out on and all the. There's some really good shows. I enjoy watching them.
I have watched them. Like I said, I've watched them 2 or 3 times, but I will be going back and watching them. And hey, YouTube's what I stay on. I stay on YouTube constantly, so
Oh,
I watch anything that's related to Bigfoot. It comes out. I try to watch it.
shoot yeah, man. Me and you both. Shoot yeah.
All right,
Yes, sir.
everybody. Thank
stuff
y'all
on
again. Hit that bell
Yes, sir.
notification, hit
Yes.
that like. If you got any comments, leave them in the comment box below, and we'll be glad to get back with you on it. Thank everybody. Thank you, Shane.
Yes, sir, buddy.
All right. We have a Facebook user here says, I love all the small town stuff. Flat Rock says, great show, Rick and Heather. Heather and Shane. Have one here says 93 million acres of forest just in Alabama. Good evening, everyone, from Scottsdale. I guess that's there, Scottsdale, Pennsylvania. Greetings from South Carolina. So we've had a really array of a lot of people from around the country on tonight. I want to thank each and every one of you, and have a safe and enjoyable weekend. And good night from Northwest Georgia Cryptics, Rick.